So we'll go through Selenium into a few questions for beginners. What is Selenium? Selenium is a robust test automation suite that is used for automating web-based applications. It supports multiple browsers, programming languages, and platforms. What are the different forms of Selenium? Selenium comes in four forms. Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver is used to automate web applications by directly calling the browser's native methods. The Selenium ID plugin. The Selenium ID is an open source test automation tool that works on record and playback principles. Selenium RC component. Selenium remote control is officially deprecated by Selenium, and it used to work using JavaScript to automate web applications. Selenium Grid allows Selenium tests to run in parallel across multiple machines. What are some advantages of Selenium? Following are the advantages of Selenium. Selenium is an open source and free to use without any license cost. It supports multiple languages like Java, Ruby, Python. Selenium supports multi-browser testing. It has vast resources and helping community over the internet. Using the Selenium ID component, non-programmers can also write automation scripts using the Selenium Grid component. Distributed testing can be carried out on remote machines. What are some limitations of Selenium? Following are the limitations of Selenium. We cannot test desktop applications using Selenium. We cannot test web services using Selenium. Programming language knowledge is required for creating robust scripts in Selenium WebDriver. Also, we have to rely on external libraries and tools for performing tasks like logging, Log4j, testing frameworks, TestNG, JUnit, reading from the external files, POI, or for Excels, etc. Which browser drivers are supported by Selenium WebDriver? Some commonly used browsers supported by Selenium are Google Chrome driver, Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver, Safari driver, HTML unit, headless browser, HTML unit driver, Android Selenium Appium, iOS driver Appium. So what is the Selenium 4 and how is it different from the other Selenium versions? Selenium 4 is the latest version of Selenium that is W3C, World Wide Web Consortium compliant. In simple words, this makes the Selenium test suites more stable and reduces compatibility issues across different web browsers. Those who have used Selenium 3 and lower version would know that a Selenium test uses JSON wire protocol to communicate with web browsers. In case of Selenium 4, there is no need for encoding and decoding the API requests using the JSON wire protocol for communication between browsers and test scripts. This allows the web driver to interact directly with the target browser. What are some features of Selenium 4? The different features of Selenium 4 are: it is W3C compliant. This makes the cross-browser tests more stable. New Selenium 4 IDE for both Chrome and Firefox is introduced. The Selenium 4 IDE tests can be exported to desired programming languages, C#, Java, JavaScript, etc. The Selenium Grid feature is more user-friendly and comes with Docker support, a set of platform as a service products that uses OS level utilization to deliver software in packages called containers. Documentation is more detailed and improved in Selenium 4. Can you test APIs or web servers using Selenium WebDriver? No. Selenium WebDriver uses the browser's native method to automate web applications, so there is no support for testing web services using Selenium WebDriver. What are the various ways of locating an element in Selenium? The different locators in Selenium are ID, XPath, CSS selector, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text. How can we inspect the web element attributes in order to use them in different locators? In order to locate web elements, we can use the developer tool and plugins like Firebug. We can launch the developer tool by pressing F12 on the browser. Users can easily hover over any element and find its different HTML properties. Firebug is a plugin of Firefox that provides various development tools for debugging applications. From an automation perspective, we use Firebug specifically for inspecting web elements in order to find their attributes like ID, class name, etc. in different locators. What is an XPath? XPath or XML path is a query language that is used for selecting nodes from the XML documents Also, it is one of the locators supported by Selenium WebDriver. What is an absolute XPath? An absolute XPath is a way of locating an element using an XML expression beginning from the root node, that is HTML node in the case of web pages. The main disadvantage of the absolute XPath is that even there is a slight change in the UI or any element, the whole XPath will fail. Example: HTML body div2 div this ends to input. What is a relative XPath? A relative XPath is a way of locating an element using an XML expression starting from anywhere in the HTML document. In this way, there are different ways of creating robust relative XPath that have minimal or no change with the changes in other UI elements. Example: // input at id equal to username. For detailed check XPath tutorial. What is the difference between a single slash and a double slash in XPath? In XPath, a single slash is used for creating absolute XPaths beginning from the root node, whereas double slash is used for creating relative XPaths. How can we locate an element by only partially matching the value of its attributes in XPath? Using contains method, we can locate an element by partially matching its attributes value. This is particularly helpful in scenarios where the attributes have dynamic values with a certain constant part. XPath expression contains // star contains at name user. Basically, the above statement will match all the values of the name attribute containing the word user in them. How can we locate elements using their text in XPath? Using text method, XPath expression equal to for text username. This will be the way of locate elements using their text in XPath. So how can we move to the parent of an element using XPath? Using / after the XPath expression of the child element, we can move to the parent of an element. For example, the locator / div id equal to child id will move to the parent of the div element of with id value as child id. How can we move to the nth child element using the XPath? Basically, there are two ways of navigating the nth child and nth element using XPath. Using square brackets with index position, example div 2 will find the second div element. Using position, example div position equal to 3 will find the third div element. What is the syntax of finding elements by a class using CSS selector? By using .class name in the CSS selector, we can select all the elements belonging to a particular class. For example, .red will select all the elements having class red. What is the syntax of finding elements by ID using CSS selector? By using ID value in the CSS selector, we can select all the elements belonging to a particular class. For example, user ID will select the element having an ID, user ID. So we'll move on with the further questions in the next tutorial.